Well, Dr. Bola Olaosebikan, OON, joins us this morning. He's an industrialist to also weigh in on the goings-on. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much, Chamberlain.
Well, looking at all of this, it's very, some say, prepare for tough days ahead. And I did tell Labour, the government themselves did say, it's a tough decision to take. Labour also says, yes, it's a tough decision. But where they disagree is that government says, well, we have to take it. But Labour says, no, you don't have to. And looking at both arguments now in terms of what's going on, how do you think we should approach it? So what should we be doing?
Well, first and foremost, I think we have a government of change that has been voted into bringing changes. And in the past 55 years of Nigeria have been wasted economically. And we are now in a new phase where we have to work things out for a wealthy future. I think the Labour should understand that the last 50 years has been wasted economically. And we are in a process, in a second phase of our national development, which I call the work process. We must work. Things must work now. The institutions in the country, they have not worked. The policies have not worked, because there has been massive wastages. And we need to work now so that we can have a wealthy future. Well, the Labour going on strike is not the issue at all. That is the old school system. From Imodu days to Asan Sumonu to Oshomole to in those days Pascal Bafiao, and the recent leadership of NLC, they've always used strike to make their point.
What should they do?
And it has not worked. And it will not work.
What do you think will work?
What will work is that they must change the system of militancy to the system of management. Labour should not continue to be a militant organization. They should be more mature than students who are always going on riot in universities and campuses are closed. So at the national level, we cannot afford to close the economy.
So what do we do when government themselves comes up and just increases price and people say, look, this is very tough for us. Yet they say this is not deregulation, just fuel price hike. So what then happens when you fully deregulate?
We must look at the principles behind the actions of government. Leadership is about action. It's not about talking. What government is doing now is that they are taking actions that are in our best interest. Information should be improved. Communication should be improved. Negotiation should be improved.
Okay,
we are all partners in progress.
Let's look at some of the actions of government. In 2016 budget, no provision for fuel subsidy. But government, on the other hand, says, no, we have not removed fuel subsidy. So what do we consider that as?
Well, basically, if you look at the price we're paying now for petrol, it's not the highest in the world. And even in Africa, where the oil is being produced, check the price in Ghana. It's more than 100 naira. It's more than 120 naira. Check Uganda. Even in Saudi Arabia, they're paying like 120 naira. So really what is happening is that we're having a price modulation. It's a temporary situation. And some people are even selling less than 145.
Should we be having price modulation? Should we be subjected to this when we are an oil-producing nation?
Honestly, Chamberlain, I agree. We are an oil-producing nation. We all know that. And we should actually produce locally rather than importing. But like I said, we're in a work phase now, where we're trying to rework the system, both the industry and the oil sector, the institutions, the infrastructure. We're trying to rework everything because it has collapsed. It has not worked for all these years. But if we are all partners in progress and we support the government, because we now have an opportunity of having a credible leadership in this country. For the first time in the history of the country, we all agree we have a decent, a credible leadership. And we have an agenda of change. Change is a process, it's not a destination. Destination is development. And therefore, the Labour must change the orientation. There must be orientation in attitudes, in tackling policies, and in trying to get the best for the workers.
Well, Doctor,
I believe we must have more refineries too, and we must make sure that refineries we have are working so that we can also create employment for workers.
You hold a key cap. You wear a key cap. You've been in labor as a section of NMA. Yes. You are an industrialist, yes, almost 30 years, so you know what the people feel, how they feel. You've also been on the part of agitating for the people. Yes. But we also know, much as you say, we're in the era of change. People should wait for certain things to work in. But as we speak, we know that the economy is in bad shape. You also know that people are losing their jobs on a regular, frequent basis. Are they just supposed to just watch things happen that way and not speak up and say, look, we're frustrated with some of the policies, we think you should do A, B, or C?
That's why I said we should now go into the stage of management, a stage of partnership, a stage of collaboration. There must be new innovations to get Nigeria running again, and we must try and attract investment to be able to rebuild Nigeria. We cannot rebuild Nigeria through strikes, through protest. In fact, we're going to scare away investors and people who want to come and partner with us in our country. Labor and workers must go into discussions with agencies, with government, so that there's peace. We need peace, we need stability. This government that has just come in, President Muhammad Buhari's government, it's an opportunity for Nigeria to get up and be on its feet again. This is a government that has given us the biggest budget in the history of Nigeria. We have a 6 trillion naira budget, and it's even higher than the budget of the previous administration by 35%. The last government budget was 5.1 billion, but this present government, their budget is 6.7 trillion. So we have a government that is trying to reinflate the economy. We must give them time. When there's pregnancy, it takes 9 months before a child is delivered, and you don't start trying to abort that child that is coming out. And we have a budget that has a 500 billion provision for social intervention.
Doc, you know, the argument out there will be that, yes, some tough decisions need to be made. Yes, the citizenry and the entire nation needs to understand that this is time for change. Yes. But yet, there are things that should have been in place, yes, before these tough decisions are made. For instance, one would have thought that there will be more healthcare facilities made available. Now, someone said the country's broke. Or there would have been, okay, reduction in the cost of getting access to some of these amenities that government has provided. But those things are not in place. There's news out there about VAT going up. There's a likelihood that VAT will be increased. That is also biting. And then you go on to increase the pump price of fuel. That has affected the price of food, especially across board, and transportation. These are some of the things that Labour is reacting to. But shouldn't government have made these other things available, or a little bit of it, before these tough decisions were taken?
Well, I believe that these are things in process, and there's need to improve information dissemination to the people on the actual content of change. For example, you talk of agriculture as a way to improve the economy of Nigeria. This agriculture is not just about food production or food security. The agriculture will be affecting like 4 sectors: food production, industrial agriculture for factories and raw materials, the health products, a lot of things are from agriculture, and then you have exports.
Doc, if I may come in here, let's talk about agriculture. A particular industrialist has gone on to buy up practically all the tomatoes out there, increasing the cost of tomatoes, so the common man can't buy it. How does that work? That's in the news. The other thing is that yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture announced a removal of subsidy for the purchase of fertilizer. How would that work for the farmer who needs this? How would that work for the citizens who need to buy tomatoes, for instance, but can't find it to buy?
Well, like I said, the budget is yet to start being implemented. A lot of provisions have been made in the budget. There's a 500 billion social intervention fund in this budget. 300 billion is recurrent and 200 billion is capital. In this budget, it's a welfare budget. For the first time in the history of our country, we have a budget that assures the payment of salaries to civil servants, payment of salaries to doctors, payment of salaries to nurses, payment of salaries to armed forces regularly, payment of salaries to police, firefighters. When these people begins to get this money and get these funds regularly, they will be able to make ends meet. And in fact, as far as the health sector is concerned, we have a very good provision of 250 billion naira for the health sector. And the health sector is one of the sectors that are recurrent sector. Out of this 250 billion, 220 billion is for recurrent, is for salary.
And now let's even stretch it a little bit. In that same health sector, we've seen incessant strikes. What have you seen in the last 1 year that gives you the encouragement that says, all right, let's give this government more time, they will deliver?
Well, certainly I have been there before. I used to be the Assistant Secretary General of NMA in the 80s. We've always used this system they were using, but it has never worked. And what will work is management approach. I have seen changes in the last 1 year by this government. The leadership of the presidency is good. In the health sector too, we have a person we can call our own man as the Minister of Health, who was also chairman of NMA in Oyo State in the 80s. He's always been part of the struggle of the people of Nigeria to get good health system. So where changes start is always from leadership. And once you have good leadership, it should promote good followership. It should bring in good policies. In the health sector, like I said, we have 250 billion for health. And 220 billion of that is going to salaries, recurrent expenditure. And there's a good provision also for pensioners. Also, this government has also introduced treasury single account. So there will be there's a provision for blockages of leakages, and therefore funds will be available to do things in the health sector. There's a challenge in the health sector whereby our immunization program is heavily dependent on international donors and counterpart funding. And there has to be prudent management so that the immunization program in our country does not collapse. Because 70% of the support is external, and we're only doing 30% locally. But I believe that with prudent management, with the TSA system, and also with the diversification that the government has introduced or emphasized for the first time. We know we have been a mono economy for too long, relying on oil. But for now, the budget of our country now, only 25% of the revenue will be coming from oil. 75% will be coming from non-oil and from loans. So the health sector will get better. We have good leadership. We have a good budget that will take care of workers, and there will be no need to strike because funds have been provided for the health sector. But I know that our country is politically independent but economically dependent. We are standing on foreign legs in so many areas, including the health sector. We must expand diversification to the health sector and to other sectors.
All right, Dr. Olaosebikan, OON, is an industrialist. Thank you for coming on this morning. Well, that's also where we draw the curtains today on the program. We thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. I'm Chamberlain Osa.
I'm Neo Taigwe. Thank you.
Many thanks. I'm Sulaiman. Let us see you again.